The energy crisis is one of the most important challenges of our time. Future generations depend on what we do today. You're watching AFN Television, Germany.
AFN's 10 o'clock news. From the Associated Press and United Press International, with video reports from ABC.
Good evening, everyone. A site emergency is in effect at the Genet nuclear power plant in Ontario, New York. A spokesman for the Nuclear Regulatory Commission says the accident occurred when a steam tube ruptured in a primary cooling system at that plant. Radioactive steam was released into the atmosphere, but plant operators there say there's no danger to the public. The reactor is now being cooled, and the situation is said to have stabilized. Here in Europe, Soviet Foreign Minister Andrei Gromyko arrived in Geneva today for talks with Secretary of State Alexander Haig, but Gromyko rejected any possible discussion of the situation in Poland. Haig says he intends to make Poland the central topic of those talks. From Geneva, ABC's Walter Rogers reports anti-nuclear demonstrators were out this past weekend and are expected to demonstrate tomorrow when those talks open.
Pacifists picked Geneva for the first anti-nuclear demonstration of the new year because Secretary Haig and Soviet Foreign Minister Gromyko meet here Tuesday for disarmament talks, and the protesters complain they feel like pawns.
The point is, as Europeans, that we live in a world where the issues are decided between the superpowers.
They packed Geneva to call attention to diverse causes like Poland and Afghanistan, Nicaragua and El Salvador, but mostly they want the Russians and particularly the Americans to keep their missiles out of Europe.
It is, of course, a demonstration, among other things, against the kinds of politics which Reagan has tried to put over in Europe and elsewhere.
Is Reagan helping you with his tough talk?
Of course he is. But unfortunately, the talk is very dangerous.
There was speculation the Soviet-backed crackdown in Poland might cool Europe's pacifist movement.
But if anything, this demonstration would seem to suggest that the anti-nuclear movement in Europe has been fueled by tensions in Poland. Walter Rogers, ABC News, Geneva.
In Poland, General Wojciech Jaruzelski, Poland's martial law chief, refused to lift martial law today and warned his countrymen there will be no return to the status quo, even when the government is handed back to civilian officials. Although he had been expected to announce easing of some martial law regulations, Jaruzelski said only that some restrictions should be reduced by the end of this month. He also said 4,500 Poles will remain in internment. ABC's John McWethy reports the martial law crackdown in Poland has brought a wealth of information to the West. That information is coming from scores of Polish defectors.
ABC News has learned that scores of important Polish defectors, far more than the U.S. government is willing to admit, have been walking into American embassies all over the world. In return for political asylum, they are telling CIA debriefers detailed information about Poland, Soviet tactics in controlling Warsaw Pact countries, and Russian military procedures and capabilities. Besides the two widely publicized defections of Polish ambassadors, one based in Tokyo and one in Washington, the CIA, according to one source, has been overwhelmed by other Polish defections, influential industrialists, other diplomats, and an assortment of military men, including at least one high-ranking Polish general. While in Western Europe in late November, weeks before martial law was imposed, sources say this general asked for asylum with his family. The CIA moved him to a safe house believed to be in Northern Virginia, where the general laid out chapter and verse about what the new Polish regime was about to do. Sources say the vital information provided by the general was regarded as so sensitive that most high-ranking officials in the Pentagon and State Department never knew about it. This raises the question of whether top administration officials had enough of the available information as they tried to assess and attempted to counter the worsening Polish situation. The defectors are being hidden here in the U.S. by the FBI, provided with new identities and security to protect them from possible assassinations. Meanwhile, America's intelligence agencies continue to use the defectors' expertise and contacts for espionage and counter-espionage behind the Iron Curtain. According to one source, so much sensitive information is now coming from these defectors that it's being regarded as one of the most important intelligence breaks in years. John McWethy, ABC News, the Pentagon.
Italian police say a newspaper in Rome has retrieved a Red Brigade communique on the kidnapping of U.S. General James Dozier. The police say the communique contains a photograph of the 50-year-old general with a beard. It's the 5th Red Brigade statement since members of the urban guerrilla gang abducted Dozier from his Verona apartment on December 17th. 6 people were killed and about 30 injured in a series of crashes in heavy fog today on Italy's main north-south superhighway near the city of Parma. Italian police say the accidents involved 15 trucks and 10 cars. Stateside, Mother Nature is at it again. Up to 4 inches of new snow fell over parts of Minnesota, which is already buried under 38 inches from last week. And the numbing cold persisted, with at least 8 deaths in the state being blamed on the storms, many of those because of poor driving conditions on the state's highways. Still to come in sports, Mike says it was a super Sunday for 49ers. James has the latest forecast for us here in Central Europe, and I'll be right back with part 1 of our special series on the crisis in the Catholic Church.
Before your trip begins, you should put your ski equipment through a careful inspection. First of all, check your ski bottoms. If there are any gouges, these should be filled with a P-Tax to be made smooth. Second, skis need to be edged in order to carve better turns. Any rust will be removed at this time. Third, a good hot wax will give you a smooth base for most ski conditions. Properly maintained equipment puts you in the high safety column. We'll see you next time with more ski tips.
Serious difficulties face the Catholic Church in the U.S. Tonight we begin a special 5-part series on why there are fewer church leaders. Dan Lucinski reports.
It was the kind of thing that had been in my mind for a long time. I went to Catholic grade school, so it was always the thing that every good Catholic boy who went to Catholic grade school was going to be a priest, or at least was asked if he wanted to be a priest.
It was the biggest day of his 26 years, the day David Swifka became a priest.
One of the problems that priests or people thinking about priesthood or religious life face generally is the attitude of many people that priesthood is an escape from the world, when it's really not. It's becoming more and more of a human being and becoming very sensitive to the needs of people in the world.
As far as the Roman Catholic Church is concerned, the only problem with people like David Swifka is there simply aren't enough of them. For almost 20 years, there's been a steady drop in the number of men entering the priesthood, of women becoming nuns. It's caused a great deal of stress within the church and changed some basic ways in which it operates.
In 1965, there were nearly 50,000 young men studying to be priests in the United States. Now the number of seminarians is little more than 1/5 of that. And currently there are 850 Roman Catholics per priest. 20 years ago, when there were more to go around, that figure was 750 Catholics to each priest. Church officials say the trend of fewer priests is likely to continue.
Until the men entering the priesthood equal the number of those who retire and die and leave active ministry, you're going to constantly have an increasingly smaller number of priests in active ministry.
It wasn't always like this. Once seminaries were bulging with hopefuls for the priesthood, but the dissension and turmoil that racked our society in the late 60s and early 70s also took its toll on the ranks of the Roman Catholic clergy. This is Dick Lucinski reporting.
And tomorrow we'll take a look at how the turbulence of the 60s contributed to the latest Catholic crisis. 16 seconds, that's how much longer it took an Air Florida 737 jetliner to get off the ground last week before crashing into Washington's Potomac River. A spokesman for the National Transportation Safety Board says it took the jet 47 seconds to complete its takeoff run, and that's 16 seconds longer than normal. 78 people died in the January 13th crash. In Massachusetts, no one was seriously hurt when a World Airways jet skidded off a runway into Boston's harbor over the weekend. There are reports that that runway was covered with ice prior to the takeoff attempt. No matter what country it's committed in, rape is an ugly crime. ABC's Bob Dyke reports a recent British TV documentary and a judge's ruling have both the British press and public upset, emphasizing once again that all too often the rape victim feels like the guilty party.
This is real, an extract from a British documentary. A woman tells police she was gang raped. Instead of sympathy, she gets the 3rd degree.
What the hell's gone on? If nothing's gone on, let's all pack it off and go home. The story you've told us is, like my colleagues, a fairy tale.
She is treated like a suspect, not a victim, and eventually withdraws her complaint. The documentary stirred controversy only second to that surrounding the court's apparent leniency towards accused or convicted rapists here. For example, last week a 33-year-old man was fined but not imprisoned for raping a 17-year-old girl. Judge Bertrand Richards ruled that since the girl was assaulted while hitchhiking, she was asking for trouble. Like many rape victims, this Scottish woman refused to face the camera. Her attackers were arrested but never prosecuted because a court-appointed psychiatrist warned she might suffer a mental breakdown if she were compelled to testify against them. In this interview, the victim said she was willing to appear in court, but it is too late now. Her assailants are free. And that is what led to the resignation of the Attorney General as Prime Minister Thatcher called for the compulsory imprisonment of all convicted rapists. Said Mrs. Thatcher, "It is absolutely vital that women should have confidence in the ability of the law to protect them against this violent and odious crime." Bob Dyke, ABC News, London.
An Atlanta judge ruled today that the state may submit evidence to the jury indicating that in addition to the 2 murders he's formally charged with, Wayne Williams killed 10 more blacks, 9 of them children. The judge says the evidence may be submitted to show what he termed a pattern in those killings.
Among the 10 additional murders the state is trying to connect to Wayne Williams is the case of 28-year-old John Porter. Last April, he was found stabbed in this lot. Porter's name was never added to the special task force list. But like many of those on the list, Porter was small, streetwise, and lived near some of the other victims. Porter's mother has told ABC News the FBI showed her pictures of Wayne Williams before his arrest last June, even though Atlanta police said the case was unrelated. Prosecutors also said today they can produce witnesses who can link Williams to 3 other victims. Bob Serkin, ABC News, Atlanta.
The U.S. Supreme Court has reinforced its ban on prayer in public schools. The court ruled a Louisiana law permitting voluntary prayer unconstitutional. The High Court also gave a major boost to the rights of U.S. Indian tribes, ruling that Indians can tax oil, gas, and minerals extracted from reservation lands. The ruling was a victory for a small tribe of Indians in New Mexico in a long battle with the giants of the U.S. oil industry. The U.S. dollar strengthened on overseas money markets today in the wake of higher federal funds and euro-dollar interest rates. The greenback closed at its highest value against the British pound since the end of October, and the dollar gained 4 pfennigs against the West German mark. The exchange rate through tomorrow is 2 marks 32, and in Frankfurt the greenback closed even higher this evening. An Army spokesman says 1 soldier was killed and 3 others injured during a live ammunition training exercise in the Southern California desert. The dead and injured, all from a division stationed in Kansas, were in training at Fort Irwin, a recently reactivated National Guard training center. And that's the news for this Monday night. James, what's the forecast hold in store for us for tomorrow?
Some warmer temperatures along with some rain, Bill. We got some warm air coming in behind the warm front. At least that'll be some relief to some of the cold temperatures we had. And the day temperatures warmed up quite a bit, at least compared to the last few weeks. We had a high pressure region that dominated our weather throughout the weekend, and of course today extending from the Atlantic back into Poland and parts of Russia. The warm front moved on to the coast early this morning and moved through the Benelux very slowly through this afternoon, spreading some rain and drizzle mainly in the Benelux and northern Germany. There were some scattered incidents of snow showers in the northern portion of Germany as well as down in the southeast where the cooler temperatures were throughout the day. Those temperatures are still cool with much of the temperatures in the southeast from Nuremberg eastward ranging in the 24-degree range to a high temperature this evening of 32 degrees reported in Hanau. The temperatures outside of Germany behind the warm front in London, 49 degrees, a marked difference from the 23 degrees down in Zurich as well as in Prague. With the frontal system slowly moving through the region and northern Germany throughout the night and tomorrow, we can expect to have some warmer air move in behind that. We're going to see temperatures tonight. They were 49 degrees back in London, and that warm air will be moving out in front of the cold front, which will be moving onto the coast by tomorrow afternoon. There will be some rain shower activity throughout the Benelux, some rain and drizzle up in the northern portions of Germany. We'll generally have cloudy skies and a lot of fog throughout the early portions of the evening, increasing increasing with the amount of precipitation, turning to rain by early morning. There will be some shower activity tomorrow afternoon for much of the viewing area, but down in the extreme southern portions of Bavaria, in the hills, there will be a mixture of rain and snow or just snow down in those areas. The high pressure region will continue to move some air up from the south, which will be warm and moist and keep us at least a little bit comfortable, or more comfortable than we have been. But for tonight, throughout much of our viewing area, we'll have some cloudy skies. There will be a mixture of rain and snow, then changing to rain later on by early morning. There will be some fog, very extensive in some areas, but spreading throughout much of Germany. The low temperatures in the low 30s, about 0 degrees Celsius. For tomorrow, continued cloudy skies, but we'll have some rain shower activity by the afternoon, and we'll have some gusty winds as the front moves through. The high temperatures will be in the mid-30s to low 40s, about 3 degrees Celsius. A little later, we'll take a look at stateside weather. There's some rain in the Pacific Northwest and some sunshine down south, but cold temperatures still in the Northeast. And Mike, even though we had the cold temperatures in the Northeast, and especially around Detroit, it was a hot time in the Silver Dome last night.
Well, it sure was, James, and you know, it was also very ironic that this year's Super Bowl was played on the very same day that gold was discovered in California back in 1849, because San Francisco has struck gold again in 1982. Details on the Silver Dome Super Bowl tonight on Sports.
Hi, can I help you? Yeah, I was thinking about doing some camping this weekend and thought maybe you could help me. Say no more.
From backpacks and baseballs to camp stoves and sleeping bags, everything for outdoor fun. And bring a friend along to your nearest morale support activity equipment checkout center.
Good evening, everyone. Last night in Pontiac, Michigan, it was Super Bowl XVI, the San Francisco 49ers and the Cincinnati Bengals. The 49ers walked away as the #1 team, as Cincinnati went home in defeat 26-21. And as promised, this year's Super Bowl was a passing game. It was also a lot of other things. AFN's Rich Rial reports.
You could almost sense the feeling of the two teams as they ran out on the field last night for Super Bowl XVI. It seemed like San Francisco was ready for the game and fired up, and Cincinnati was a bit tentative, and they sure were in the first half as San Francisco jumped out to a big lead. The big story was Joe Montana, the quarterback of the 49ers. He displayed the guile and flair of a riverboat gambler, and he engineered 2 long touchdown drives after San Francisco's youthful secondary swiped the ball from the Bengals, and the 49ers rolled to a 26-21 victory last night in Pontiac. Montana executing Bill Walsh's innovative offense with electrifying ease, and a spate of turnovers which kept Cincinnati off the scoreboard helped the 49ers roll to a record 20-point halftime lead. The Bengals roared to life behind quarterback Ken Anderson in the second half, scoring on his 5-yard run and 2 passes to tight end Dan Ross. But it wasn't enough, and the difference was a goal line stand of epic proportions in the third period by the San Francisco defense. It was the third time Cincinnati had been denied so much as a point within 10 yards of the 49ers end zone. Ultimately, it was that defense, a heady mix of veterans and rookies, that carried the 49ers to one of the most remarkable turnarounds in National Football League history. Remember, that team just 2 years ago had staggered through its second consecutive 2-14 season. But this year it reached the pinnacle, its first Super Bowl championship and its first try. Montana is only in his 3rd year in the NFL, and he outplayed Anderson in the first half. He scored the 49ers' first touchdown on a 1-yard dive, then he passed 10 yards to fullback Earl Cooper for a second score. Each of those scores was set up by a Cincinnati turnover deep in San Francisco territory. Free safety Dwight Hicks, the only veteran in the 49ers secondary, intercepted an Anderson pass at the 5-yard line and ran it out of danger to the 32. In 11 plays, one of them a flea flicker pass, this one good for 14 yards, Montana put the 49ers on the scoreboard with 5:52 remaining in the opening period. And with 2.5 minutes gone in the second quarter after Anderson had drilled a pass to Chris Collingsworth at the 49ers' 8-yard line, Eric Wright stripped the ball from the Cincinnati rookie wide receiver, and fellow rookie cornerback Lynn Thomas pounced on the fumble for San Francisco. 12 plays later, Montana's flare pass to Cooper, who bowled over 2 Bengals at the goal line, climaxed the 92-yard scoring drive. It was the longest drive in Super Bowl history. Having broken one Super Bowl record, the 49ers proceeded to shatter another, scoring on 2 Ray Wersching field goals just 13 seconds apart in the final minute of the first half. The first, a 26-yarder, came 15 seconds short of halftime. Then on the kickoff, Cincinnati's Archie Griffin fumbled the ball, and so did his brother Ray. Milton McCall fell on it for the 49ers, and after an illegal procedure penalty pushed them back 5 yards to the 10, Wersching kicked a 22-yarder with 2 seconds left on the clock. The Bengals' second-half charge cut the 49ers' lead to 20-14 with 10 minutes and 6 seconds to play, and San Francisco's situation was suddenly very precarious. But the 49ers' offense, which had turned sluggish and conservative, woke up again behind Montana's 22-yard pass to Mike Wilson and Ricky Patton's key runs to set up Wersching's third field goal, a 40-yard boomer with 5:25 to play. That opened up a 23-14 lead for San Francisco. Then Eric Wright, that rookie right cornerback, nailed the spike in the Bengals' coffin. He intercepted Anderson near midfield with 5 minutes, 7 seconds to go, and then he raced 25 yards to the Cincinnati 22-yard line. From then, it was just a matter of time, and the 49ers ate it up. They stayed on the ground as the seconds ticked away, punching slowly, steadily into the end zone. Finally, with 1:57 to go, they put away the first Snowbelt Super Bowl as Wersching kicked his 4th field goal, a 23-yarder. Anderson then drove the Bengals frantically for one more score, a 3-yard pass to Ross in the middle of the end zone as the 49er defense laid back during the entire march, looking to avoid the bomb. It came, though, with just 16 seconds to go, and when Dwight Clark, the hero of San Francisco's National Conference Championship victory over Dallas, made another decisive catch on the onside kick, the victory was secure, San Francisco the winner in Super Bowl XVI. Specialist Richard Rial, AFN Sports.
Now, the reason you viewers in the Kaiserslautern area did not receive the second half of the game last night, there was a power outage in your area. But for you and anyone else who may have missed the game last night, AFN plans to rebroadcast Super Bowl XVI. Check your Stars and Stripes for the exact time, but in the meantime, you can catch a rebroadcast of the Orange Bowl tonight, immediately following this newscast. That's #1 Clemson and the Nebraska Cornhuskers in the Orange Bowl right after this cast. It was Portland and Boston in the NBA's only game last night. The Trailblazers, #5 in the Pacific Division, handed the Atlantic Division's top team, the Celtics, a 123-119 defeat. Billy Ray Bates had 26 for Portland. James says it's raining in the northwest and snowing in the northeast, and I'll be back with college basketball. I'll look at a guy who's ambidextrous in the sports biz and more after this.
Thousands of American military personnel and their families pass through the Frankfurt International Airport each month. About 5,000 of them get help from the U.S. Forces USO Lounge. Inside, you'll find all kinds of services for the traveler, including civilian and military telephone services and assistance on contacting your sponsor or unit. So the next time you travel through the Frankfurt International Airport and you need a break or assistance, stop by the U.S. Forces USO Lounge in the basement of Hall C.
A single matchup in college basketball's top 20 last night. It was #3 Virginia over 17th ranked Louisville, 74-56. Ralph Sampson was the deciding factor in that matchup. He poured in 26 for Virginia. Colorado got their 32nd loss of the season in the NHL last night as the Edmonton Oilers, with no goals from Gretzky, got in 5 consecutive to beat the Rockies. Final score, Edmonton 7, Colorado 4. Elsewhere, it was New York and Washington 4-all, and Vancouver and LA skated to a 5-5 tie. In the women's world of tennis, they took the day off for the Super Bowl, but tonight top-seeded Martina Navratilova and second-seeded Andrea Jaeger square off in the finals at a Seattle tournament, with the winner taking home $30,000. Tonight's contest in Seattle means Navratilova and Jaeger will both be late for their meet-up in Chicago, where once again Navratilova is the favorite. Others in the field include Pam Shriver, Barbara Potter, and Billie Jean King. Meanwhile, in college gymnastics, California State Fullerton is counting on a young All-American gymnast to continue to bring the school glory. Bill Valeka is an athlete who's a double threat in sports.
21-year-old Cal State Fullerton senior Bill Valeka has been an All-American gymnast for the past 2 years, and as his coach explained, a very important part of the Titans' 10th place national ranking.
We call him Wild Bill. He goes for everything in the book. He's a very, very exciting performer, and he's actually originated many movements in gymnastics on the horizontal bar and parallel bars in particular.
Not only is Bill a standout on the Cal State Fullerton gymnastics team, he's also a member of the U.S. platform high diving team and had a chance to perform his high diving skills from 90 feet up at Marineland last summer.
I like to fly. I like to get up in the air and flip and twist.
With the gymnastics season just getting underway and the Nationals not till April, Bill will have to restrict his high dives to perhaps an occasional tumble off of one of the gymnastics apparatus. Ed Arnold for ABC News.
And in the final round of the Phoenix Open Golf Tournament, Lanny Watkins still holds a 4-stroke lead. In second is Morris Hatalski. John Cook is third. And that's it for sports on a Monday night. James, it seems to me that ice skating and water sports would be in order back stateside, at least in the northern half of the country.
It sure will be. There's plenty of rain and plenty of snow, both all in the north. In the Pacific Northwest, another storm is causing some very extensive rainfalls from northern California through Oregon and Washington. But across the Rockies and into the northwest up there in the Montana region and North Dakota, it's still pretty calm and clear up in that region, and fair skies all the way down into the southern half of the west coast. But down in the southeast, there's some partly cloudy skies, even though there's a system moving through the area. Most of the weather is staying fairly to the north of that. From the Ohio Valley to the mid-Atlantic coast states, there's some snow shower activity, and across the Great Lakes into New England, there's still some snow. The temperatures in the northeast are very cold, below 0 in some places and only in the teens and others. The temperatures in the last 24 hours, they range from 27 degrees below 0 in War Road, Minnesota, to 85 degrees down in Miami, Florida. Our weather for tomorrow, we'll have some warmer temperatures, but we'll still have some cloudy skies. Bill?
In Camden, New Jersey, an explosion ripped through a classroom building of a Camden County College's City Extension campus. At least 40 people are reported injured, some seriously. A fire official says the blast may have been caused by a methane gas leak. Radioactive steam leaked from a nuclear power plant in Ontario, New York today. Plant officials there say the situation is now stable and no further releases are expected. A federal judge has rejected a request by Senator Harrison Williams to postpone sentencing of the New Jersey Democrat's Abscam bribery conviction. He's due in federal court tomorrow. And a Rome newspaper says it got a communique today from the Red Brigade's terror group holding U.S. Army General James Dozier. Police sources say it contains a photo of Dozier with a beard, indicating he may still be alive. On Wall Street, 30 industrials, 838.18, down 6.85. Once again, the U.S. dollar gained 4 today. The exchange rate through tomorrow, 2 marks, 32 pfennigs. And that's our Monday night edition. For James, Mike, myself, and all of us here at AFN, have yourself a pleasant evening.
AFN's 10 o'clock news. From the Associated Press and United Press International, with video reports from ABC.
On Dynasty, Blake goes on trial for murder, and Crystal is given control of the company. On Dynasty, 9/10 tomorrow night, right here on AFN.
It's no fun being a stranger. Coming to a new place is always a hard adjustment. Say hello to the new folks. They'll appreciate it. You're watching AFN Television, Germany.